So we're back with module 3. Now module 3 is all about sacrifice. Remember in my introduction I said you are willing to sacrifice for others, and you do understand that if you come up to the top, it's better if you lift others up so that you're not lonely at the top. But of course it's very important that you rise yourself so that you can pull others up. And sometimes you rise together with others at the same time. As you're rising, they rise with you. But the whole point is it takes sacrifice to advance. One of the things God told me recently is exactly that. Advancement is through sacrifice. Jesus, I'm sorry to bring this example, but it's because it's relevant. But Jesus moved on to the realm of eternity where he's seated at the right hand of God because he died. He chose to die. A lot of people say, well, he died as if he was murdered. No, he chose to. He knew he would be killed. He agreed to it. It was a choice. Study your Bible. It was a choice. Outcome is that you have to pay the price. It's the willingness to pay the price. Back to my example of Jesus, it's your willingness to pay the price that will make a successful sacrifice. It's not the grudging sacrifice that works. You don't drag your feet and complain and mull about it. No, it's the willingness to pay the price. That is what makes the sacrifice beautiful. You did it wholeheartedly. You do it willingly. And then, of course, it will cost you. That's a summary of this. It will cost you. And sometimes it will cost you everything short of your sanity. So sometimes what happens is, so people show up in the world and they've worked so hard, they've gotten their degree or their diploma or whatever, they've worked hard in school, they get a good job, and then they rise to the top and they feel like they are giving too much. They don't realize that now that you have made a name for yourself, you have won yourself a ticket to sacrificing even more. It is not a time to rest. It's not like, hey, I made it to the top, I can just go to bed and wake up in eternity. No. To him which much is given, Jesus said, much is expected. Now that you have all this wealth of knowledge, your experience, you have conquered mountains, you've been through the valleys, you've done everything. Now you have the opportunity to pass on the baton. And how do you do that? Through sacrifice. Through sacrifice. You put yourself on the line for others. Put yourself on the line for others. So number 1, we take action steps. And these action steps are basically to ensure that we're moving towards giving. Paul said, I poured out myself as a living sacrifice. Esther fasted for 3 days, no food. Queen Esther fasted to get wisdom, to tune herself into the will of God before she went to the king. And before she could get an audience with the king, she needed the favor of God, who then gave the king favor. In other words, who then gave the king a pleasant disposition towards Esther so that he wasn't offended when she came to the courthouse. So for those who don't know, if you went to see the king without him expecting you, just like today, if the president doesn't have an appointment with you, you'll be kicked out. It's that simple because you didn't have an appointment, or anybody who's important. Now in those days, if they stretched out the scepter is that little thing they hold, and it's like a button. But if they didn't stretch it out, you were not accepted there. So you were not wanted there. And the penalty was death. And you can imagine why that would be the penalty, because anybody from anywhere would be rushing into the king's throne room wanting to see him. Anybody would do anything. He could even get assassinated. But for the queen to protect herself from that eventuality, she needed favor with God first. And the action she began with was fasting. Now some of you, I know I don't really look forward to fasting, but that's the whole point. It's supposed to silence your flesh. That anything that comes from within you out of a place of carnality is nullified. It is hushed. And now you can tune your spirit to God's spirit, and there's direct communion, conversation, communication. There's a flow from spirit to spirit, and you see things with a clarity you never did before, and you're empowered to take action. This is what I've seen about fasting. You may know what the issue is. Even without fasting, you could actually know these are the danger points or whatever. This is where the fires are. And the fires are lit. But now, what do we use to quench the fires? You're able to come boldly to a place of the solution. And that place requires you to upgrade your capacity for the fire. And how do you upgrade your capacity for the fire? For you to be the water that quenches the fire, you need certain qualities. And those come through fasting. The tenacity, the wisdom, the insight, the quick thinking on your feet, the embodiment of grace, of power. You need power from God. So anyway, you take action steps towards your sacrifice. Now, some of you may not have a clear idea what that sacrifice looks like, but some of you already know that you need to sacrifice for your family. If your kids are going to make it, you need to sacrifice. If your marriage is going to work, you need to sacrifice. If your company is going to get off the ground or even scale to the next level, you got to sacrifice. If your relationships are going to work outside of your marriage and family, you need to sacrifice. Now, sometimes we're attacked, and this is the second thing, sometimes we're attacked by an imposter syndrome, where we want to be something like we talked about in the previous module 2. You want to be something, but you're acting it out at the beginning. Like you're not convinced. I told you I used to be called Margaret Thatcher. Maybe I wasn't convinced, but you know what? It speaks of leadership. And yes, rulership and being a change agent, a world shaker, a nation shifter. So when it comes to some things where you feel, you know what, that's not me, and yet it is you. In a place of sacrifice, you need to overcome that. Esther had to come fully into terms with the fact that she was the queen. And queens make difficult decisions. She had the power to say yes or no, to persuade the king to agree or disagree. That is the power she had. That is the kind of authority she had over the entire territory. Now you need to step up. If you're not convinced that that is you, you have got to step up. By taking action, you actually exercise that authority. You exercise it. So you're no longer playing on the court of imposter syndrome because you've taken a step farther beyond your fears. Now, number 3, you can pause. Pause in your new identity. Yes, absorb it, feel it, act it, be it. Sometimes we say, well, but you've had this comment where she's just posing. Like it means she's not all that. She's just pretending. No, if it means you pose, you pose. Because sometimes it's true, you're not there yet. But act like you are. Act like you run the show. And you know what that does? You begin to actually take over responsibilities that you didn't even plan to, but because you're acting a certain way, they say, you know what, you're the one that's going to run the next project. And guess what? If the project works, you're in for an advancement, and you're in for promotion, and your name will be known. And yes, you hold the trophy, and everybody will know that you're no longer playing junior anymore. So yeah, pose. By all means. I'm not saying fake it till you make it, but there's a way you can embody your identity on a 2.0 level that is no longer 1.0. And now you actually act like it, and people begin to see it because you're doing stuff on a higher level. If you're not the boss, act like the boss would. And why not? Nobody will kill you for it. Act like you're driving the car you want to drive. Where would you go? What would you do? Yeah. But since we're talking about sacrifice, act like you have the weight of that responsibility, even if you don't have it. Believe it. What if you had the children that you want? How would you need to act? What if you want that place of accountability that you're desiring? What if you sat on the board? What would you be like? How would you have to speak? What would you need to wear? How would you need to smell? How would you need to sound? What would you need to look like? And the natural flow from there, perfect segue, number 4 is conquer fear. You need to conquer fear. You cannot act based on the fear of this and this will not work. What are they going to say? What if they find out? Oh, my husband would never accept it. Oh, my father would be so mad. Oh, my mother would say this and that. Forget it. You do you, boo. You do you. As you're posing, you're conquering that fear. You're testing the waters. And you're saying, yes, I can do this. I will do this. So don't act from a place of fear, but conquer that fear. Transcend it. Go beyond it. Act even out of it, but act from a place of, I have no fear. I will do this. Even if I feel afraid, I am not going to respect it. I will conquer this fear, and I will do what I need to do regardless of it. Being present. And then get feedback. Get feedback. Take feedback. The most important feedback is what you tell yourself. Do an honest assessment and tell yourself, this worked, this didn't work. I need to do this next time. Adjust. Look at the variations. Adjust. Look at the variations and adjust. And where the variations come from is because you have gone through the second module and you have decided this is your ramrod, straight, north, south direction. In other words, this is your standard. This is what you want to become. Remember, we talked about that in the previous model. And this is what you are right now. And that variation is the action that you need to take. The variation between the two represent the action you need to take to go back to the standard or to stick to the standard. And number 6, anticipate pain or pushback. Everything in you, because you're so conditioned. You're so conditioned. You're taking a place of sacrifice, but it's going to cost you your own identity. Let me tell you, it will shake all your convictions because you need to be sure about what you're doing. And the pushback will be, no, let's remain small time. Let's remain where we were as the underdog. Let's just do simple things. We don't need confrontation. We don't need anybody to know us and paint a negative picture of us because we went out to do heroic things that we're not ready for. We're not ready for that kind of talk. We're not ready for people to point us out on the street. No, anticipate that people will point you out on the street. Anticipate that there will be negative talk. And there will always be haters. It doesn't matter what level you're at. Even those who've made it, even Margaret Thatcher had pushback. Anticipate the greatest pushback is from yourself. Nothing in you will want to make the shift to greatness. And remember, greatness is sacrifice. Nobody makes it to the top without pain. Anticipate the pain. It's just like when you start exercising. The first day in the gym, the first day you take that run, that marathon or that sprint or whatever, it is painful because you haven't been exercising. Your muscles are not used to this. So the second day, everything in you is saying, don't do that. Don't go back there. We are warning you. We don't want it. So you're in pain. But when you go back to the gym the second day, you do that run the next morning, your body is getting used to it. And the muscles are starting to adjust. There's a certain acceptance that's starting to sink in. Oh, I guess she's not going to stop. This is going to be the new normal. And it will continue until number 7, you have a new pattern. A new pattern. A new pattern means you have overcome your fears. You have taken the feedback positively, and you have adjusted. You have anticipated the pain and the pushback, and you have gone beyond it. And now you have a new normal. A new normal. A new normal is where you make decisions. Let me tell you, for Queen Esther, for instance, she was probably a queen, yes, but who doesn't make much decisions. She doesn't make much of a change in the way things are run. But after she made her sacrifice to go see the queen, even when she was not invited, to go and see the king, even when she was not invited, something changed. Suddenly she's drafting letters. Suddenly the letters are being drafted according to what she says. She wasn't drafting the letters herself. No, she was speaking things into reality. She was saying, do this, do that, say this, say that. And she's suggesting to the queen, why don't we do this? And the king is listening. I don't know why I keep saying queen. The king is listening to what she has to say. She has audience just because of one act of sacrifice. There's a new pattern. It's a new normal. She's drafting policy. She's suggesting what should be done to the enemies of the state. She has equal standing now with the king. They're in co-rulership. So you need to get to a place where you access the throne room of heaven and you're saying, you know what, God? Father, why don't we do this? Why don't you do this? And he says, I give you the power to do it. And you command things that are not as if they be. And it happens. So the tools for this module 3, is number 1, write down your story. Oof, Father. I felt a strong presence of God. Write down your story, which is how you got here. Don't downplay it. If you achieved something, you achieved it. Put it down as an achievement. If you worked your way through hardship, through challenges, acknowledge that. Write down your story. After all, that is your story, and it's how you got here to the present moment. Even if you're not so proud of where you are right now, guess what? Something has worked in your life. And yes, you have faced difficulties, but let that not be your focus. Write the story fairly and in a balanced way. Then number 2, write a letter to your 90-year-old self. Why do I say 90 years? First of all, because I believe you will live long. So yes, you will see your 90th birthday, but also because at 90, things are different. You look back at the things you did as a child and as a younger person, and they look so almost like, why was I concerned? Why did I fret? Why was I worried about that? Because of life teaches you so much more about the value of it, about the things that matter, about where our priorities should lie. So when you write a letter to your 90-year-old self, try and imagine what you will have accomplished or what you want to have accomplished, and what kind of an impact you'll have made on earth, and how you feel about it. So I hope that's clear. I'll see you in module 4 in just a bit in the next segment. Bye for now. Ciao.